Looking back on your childhood days, tell me, or can you tell me a little bit about your early life in the background?
Yes, I can. Well,
You grew up and things like
I was born in Alabama, Camp Hill, Alabama, Tallahassee County. Now, this is oral history to me because I was too young to. My parents and my sisters and brother told me about this part of my history because I was too young. And my father was a sharecropper. And so at the end of the season, they was trying to tally up the crops to see how much each one of them get. And the sharecropper told my father that he didn't make any money this year. My father, he thought my father couldn't count, but he could. And my father knew exactly how much he was owed. So they hee-hawed around about it for a while, and he acted like he wasn't going to pay my father. So my father got kind of rough with him, and he knew where he kept his money, so he just took the amount of money he was supposed to earn from sharecropping, and then he left Alabama running because he knew when he beat that white man up, it was all over. So he left Alabama running. He was on his way to Detroit, where his other relatives lived, some of his cousins and brothers. He stopped in Chattanooga and got a good job. And so that's how we landed in Chattanooga. I was only a few weeks old, so they tell me at the time.
Okay, so in the early years here in Chattanooga, what were some of the major influences, or who were some of the major influences on your life?
Well, it was not so much of who, but how many people. I was truly raised by a village. I'm a village kid. You heard that, I'm being raised by the village, because we moved from 14th Street on the west side. We were one of the first people to move into the west side projects. And as the projects filled up, we kind of became a village. And the people took care of the children. And my mother didn't work at the beginning because she wanted to take care of her children. But when she found out the neighbors would take care of her, she went to work too. So when we come home, we would have to go through the neighbor's house next door so she could check us out and make sure everything's in all one piece. And also she would help prepare the meals for us for dinner while my parents worked. So we was truly to give you some examples of what the village was like. Number runners, you know what number runners are. They were the truant officers in our neighborhood. If the numbers runner picking up numbers throughout the neighborhood, they see a kid out of school, they'll tell the parents on them. Okay. I used to come back from college and come down on 9th Street before I go home, and I would talk to all the people on 9th Street. And 9th Street made up a whole bunch of people. Some of them were prostitutes, some of them was gangsters, some was a little everything, but I knew them all. And they all knew me. And so they would always tell me, you stay in school, man, you're on the right track. The prostitution would tell me, stay in school. The racketeers, the guys on all the clubs, they knew me. They tell me, stay in school. Education is something we couldn't get. It was always in our face. I went to church. It was about education. And the teachers lived next door to us. We couldn't get away from education. And so we knew what education was all about and what it's supposed to do. What is wrong, what I see wrong now is all they want to do is get educated and get a good job to raise a family, protect the family, and educate the family. But we knew it was more than that. After we did all those things, we were supposed to advance the race. That was drilled in us all through high school and all through junior high school. You got to be good because you got to advance the race. Right now, all we want to do, we are more individual oriented. We don't know nothing about the group. We're not interested in the group. We don't know our history. And so that's the way I grew up. I grew up with that knowledge and that understanding. I couldn't get away from education. I don't care which way I turn.
Yes. So when you talk about growing up on the west side, of course, and you're exactly right, the whole west side was a village, not just
yes. I mean, it was a truly village. I went to a nursery. You know, right there. What's that church right there on Grove Street, right across from the project office?
But you went to Newton Center?
Newton Center.
Yes.
Right, almost stone throw from my door. Okay. All the children went to Newton Center. All my brothers went to Newton Center. So we always had that orientation towards school.
And of course, the church that you attend now, Second Baptist.
Yes, right there in my front door. Yes. So I couldn't get away from it.
So I guess when we talk about, and we're going to expound a little bit on the West Side because West Side was truly what I consider historical for African Americans or blacks
Yes.
because that's where they put us, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now that's where blacks had their homes and things of that nature. You
Yeah.
had the doctors, you had the lawyers, you had everybody.
Everybody made the whole community was made up, all the professions and everything.
Yes. So when you talk about the West Side, in the early 50s and the late early 60s, late 50s, they started something called urban renewal.
Yeah, I know about
Were
that.
you still living over there at that time?
No, I wasn't. We moved over on the east side of town where we live now in 45. But I had a strong connection to the west side, so we would always go back to that connection on the west side. I still do it today almost. And and I was in college when they had the urban renewal coming through. That's when they were building the freeway.
Right.
And I looked at that and I said, well, at least I ought to get a job over there because I was already in construction engineering in school. So I wanted to get a job help building the freeways. Now this is in the early 50s now. You got to remember that. And so I went over there to get a job, and the man said, well, you're not in the union. I said, okay. So I came back home and told my oldest brother about it. So I said, I need $200 to join the union. He lent me $200. I went and joined the union, so I'm thinking I'm gonna get a job. And then I learned how the union works. There's something called a bench that you sit on, and you sit on the bench and you move up. I never did move up. I never got a job. I want to be on the surveying team because I learned surveying in college. And so I began to think then I wasn't the kind of person I am now. It's events in history, events that as I went along in my life that made me realize it's some kind, I call it divine intervention, because I wasn't thinking nothing about what I am today. All I want to do is play baseball, basketball, run track, and go to school. That's all I was interested in. But something always happened to change that, always got in my way to make me change my way of thinking. Now, I wasn't trying to be who I am today and the way I think today. All I wanted to do was play basketball because I was going to be a basketball player. And I was pretty good at it. But events took place in high school, events took place. In college, events took place. In the military, events took place. When I tried to get a job in Chattanooga, events took place. Everywhere I turned, something happened to me that I wasn't planning on happening, that I wasn't looking for. I didn't want to get involved in anything. Just events took over me.
So, as a young man here in Chattanooga, as a young black man here in Chattanooga, you experienced racism. Was it covert or was it outwardly racist?
Well, I'll tell you my first experience with racism. I didn't even know what it was.
Okay.
I was a little kid living on the west side. You know where Cameron Hill used to be?
Yes.
And we used to slide down that hill on them cardboard boxes. Well, there was some white kids lived on Cameron Hill, and we just played together. We didn't know nothing about separation, equal, separate, but kids don't think about that kind of stuff. So we was all playing, going down the hill. So one day I said to the kid, a little white kid playing with us, I said, come on, go with me and go home and get us lunch, because my mother always fixed lunch for us. I'm inviting a white kid to my house to eat lunch on the West Side Project. And when I walked in the door, I looked at my mother and I saw the expression on her face. I never will forget that expression. I see it today. I knew I had done something wrong, but I didn't know what the hell it was. I just knew I had done something wrong. She didn't say nothing. She fed both of us. And we went on about our way, but I never brought him back home with me again because I knew I had done something wrong just from the expression of my mother. And I found out later I just figured out later what this was. We wasn't supposed to be playing together. We wasn't supposed to be associating with each other. I learned that later. But that's what the expression on my mother's face said to me at that time. But she never said a word. She just sat us down at the table and fed us. And we went on and played back to the playing just like we normally do. But that's my first experience with racism.
Okay. So in your early days, you went to elementary school and secondary schools here in Chattanooga?
Yeah, I went to Main Street on the west side.
Main Street. Talk a little bit about that because Main Street School is gone.
Yes, it is. Well, when I first went to Main Street, first grade, I went to school and I didn't like it. So I came back home. I just walked out of school, came back home. I walked in the door, my mother said, "What you doing here?" I said, "I don't like that place." my mother took a switch to me. Me all the way back to school. I never forget that. So I realized I got to stay in this school else I'm gonna get a whooping.
Okay.
So that's my first experience in being in school in the first grade.
First grade.
In Main Street, on Main Street.
So you're a radical from day one, huh?
Well, I guess so, but I knew I didn't like that place because I've been used to home all my life. And then she changed me and sent me to school to be with all them kids I know nothing about. They looking crazy to me. And I just went on back home.
So you graduated from Howard High School. What year did you graduate from Howard?
We was the first class to graduate from Howard High School on Market Street in '55.
That was the new Howard?
New Howard High School on Market Street.
They had an old Howard
on Carter Street.
Carter Street. Okay. So you first class graduate. What year was that?
55.
1955.
Yeah.
And graduating from Howard High School, you matriculated on to college.
Yes.
Where did you go to college?
Alabama A&M, but that was something that happened to me in high school too.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Well, I like math and history. I didn't do too good in English and literature and all that stuff, but I did love math and history. And so at that time, they was getting ready to try to integrate the schools in the 50s and everything. And so we had a student exchange program between the black and white schools. I went over to City High School one day, and I saw a word on the board I couldn't hardly pronounce. It was calculus. And I asked, "What is calculus?" And they said, "That's a form of math." And well, that really piqued my interest in because I love math. And we had taken all the math you could have at Howard. On the math we had was Algebra 1, Algebra 2, geometry. And that was it. We didn't have trigonometry. So I asked Miss Blackshear, Miss Blackshear, she was our math teacher. I asked Miss Blackshear, "What is that? What is calculus?" And she began to tell me, she said, "Boy, before you can take calculus, you got to have trigonometry." I said, "Well, what is trigonometry?" She said, "That's another form of math." I said, "Well, how do we get trigonometry? How come we don't have trigonometry at Howard?" She said, "Well, it's not in your curriculum." I said, "Well, how do we get in the curriculum?" So she told me. So I started on that venture to get trigonometry at Howard. So I was supposed to go to the principal and talk to him. I did go to Mr. Davenport, I think his name was. I asked Mr. Davenport, I said, "Mr. Davenport, I said, we'd like to have, see, all of us that took all the math we could, but we still had another year in school. See, we had geometry, supposed to go to trigonometry." So I said, "Mr. Davenport, I said, how do we get trigonometry? How come we can't take some trigonometry?" He said, "Well," he said, "you got to have at least 17 students." So I said, "That's no problem." I went back to all the math students I knew and said, "Do you want to take trigonometry?" They said, "Yeah." So I got me 17 students. I went back to him and said, "Well, we got 17 students." He said, "Well, you got to have a teacher." I asked Miss Blackshear, could she teach trigonometry? She said, "Yes." So I told him we had a teacher. Now he really started sweating because now he got to go to the school board. Black folks weren't supposed to take trigonometry. I didn't know that. I thought we all supposed to be teaching the same thing to all the students. They just had them separate but equal. I believed in that. Well, to make a long story short, I was a sophomore in college before they got trigonometry at Howard. But every year I would go back. Every time I come home, I go out to Howard and ask them, where's that project on trigonometry at? I stayed on it till they got it, even though I was in college.
So you've been an activist all your life?
No, I've been, yes, but events caused me to be that. It's not that I desired to be that. Events.
It had to be in you.
Yeah, it was in me because I believe that anybody gonna bully me, I'm gonna fight the bully. And I saw the institutions as nothing but a big bully. I see the institution that make up America as nothing but a big bully. Now, I fought bullies in school, And I didn't have to win the fight. I just had to make a good showing because they didn't fight you no more. See, a bully won't fight you twice if you fight him good first time. All you got to do is just fight him. Whether you lose or not, just fight him. And I would fight him. And they never fought me twice. Although I was the smallest. See, I used to run with the big boys, but I was the smallest fellow in the group. I used to run with the big boys. And seeing when we started fighting, they always pick on the smallest fellow. So I was the smallest fellow, so I had to learn how to fight very well. Yeah, but my father also, you got to understand, my father also, right over across the street where we live on Cleveland, we're in food and fun, he was pretty good with his hands. And he built us a boxing ring in the backyard. Nobody hardly knew about it. He built us a boxing ring in the back. So we all could box very well. But nobody knew we could box. And so they got a shock when they started fighting us. And I had another brother, my brother 2 years older than me. He could knock a person out with one punch. He had a powerful punch. And he knocked a couple of fellas out and they didn't bother him no more. But they seemed like since I was the smallest, they always wanted to fight me. But I would fight them, and I would lose both. I would lose a lot of them, but I would win a few of them too. But they didn't fight me twice.
So as you matriculated over down to Alabama A&M and started on your college career,
yeah.
Tell me a little bit about those college days.
Now that was really an education.
Okay.
When I got to Alabama A&M, I got a scholarship. Well, before I left Howard, I was on the B team at Howard, and I was moving up to the A team. And Chubby James was the coach at the time, and he kicked me. You know, coaches like to kick you in your butt. Some coaches like that.
Coach White and all those guys.
Yeah, well, you know, I didn't take the people kicking me. Right. So when he kicked me, I said, "Let me tell you something, man." I said, "You kick me again, I'm gonna take that shoe off of your foot, stick it up your you know what." And Chubby James got mad with me. And he put me out of the gym. He told me, "Don't come back to the gym." I didn't go to the gym. That took me off the basketball team and everything. So I started playing industrial ball at the Y. And Mr. Days, you remember Mr. Days? Mr. Days taught me, he said, "What you gonna do when you graduate?" I said, "I don't know. I might go to the military. I don't know what I'm gonna do." I knew I didn't want to go to the foundries because I've been down there and looked at all that fire down through there. I can't handle this. And so I was going to go to the military. So he said, what would you do if I got you a scholarship? I said, "I would take it." He said, "You might be able to play college ball." So he got me a scholarship to Alabama A&M. I mean, these are the events that took place in my life that I call divine intervention.
Yeah, but
and so
in those days, you had people that paid attention to you.
Oh, yeah.
And those people, if they were able, they would help you.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, the village.
The village, exactly.
That's the village.
And that's what we had, the village.
Yeah, and the village is gone now, and we got now that's the next paper I'm gonna write. I'm gonna give you a paper when I leave here, when I wrote in the 60s when I came back from the military, or what the black community should do to unify. And now I found out that young black people don't have a connection to us as a group. And what black people need, they always know what their individual needs are. But if we're not advancing our own group, then we're going backwards.
So we don't have that collective.
We don't have that collective thought anymore.
Right. So now you're in college, you graduated college, and you come back to Chattanooga. Do you do that, or do you go on into the military?
No, I graduated from college. Well, I did. They weren't going to give me my degree in college because of some of my activities in the campus.
Talk about those activities.
Well, you see, in Alabama, if you live in Alabama, born in Alabama, and you're educated in Alabama, they don't think you'll do anything wrong in Alabama. So anything that went wrong on that campus, they thought the people from out of state, it was about 8 of us from out of state. And everything went wrong on that campus, they come and get 8 of us and blame us. And I just got tired of that. And it was just an atmosphere that I couldn't understand. For instance, when we first got there, we had a student body meeting, and they started telling us how to treat white people. And I said, what in the world is this? So I got to walk out of the meeting. I was the only fellow who walked out of the meeting. I didn't want to hear that. I got home training at home. I didn't come down to get no home training. So I walked out of the meeting. For that little act of walking out of that meeting got me for the disciplinary committee. Want to know why did I walk out of the meeting? Well, I told them, I said, that what y'all was talking about home training. I said, I got home training at home. My mother and father taught me how to treat people. I don't need that from you. So I didn't feel I needed it. They said, well, you're not supposed to walk out the meeting. And I said, well, what in the hell am I doing here? And that was just one thing. Another thing was that we had a dairy farm on the campus. And some of the fellows went down there and stole some ice cream, them big old 5-gallon cans of ice cream, brought that to the dormitory, and we all eating ice cream, and we couldn't eat it all. So we poured it down the toilet. We put it in the toilet and flushed it down. And we had our own irrigation system on the campus. And that messed up the whole irrigation system. All the water on the campus turned milky. So that had to be us, right? So they called them 8 kids in again. I said, I didn't have nothing to do with that. And it made me kind of mad. And I said, well, I'm gonna show y'all something. I said, if you want to see what I think I ought to do on this campus, I said, I'm gonna show y'all. There was a lot of things on the campus I thought was wrong, and a lot of us thought was wrong. So we sit down and wrote up some grievances. And we took them to the president. And the president didn't want to talk to us at all. He looked at us and came into the meeting, and we told him what we wanted. He said, okay, I'll look him over and think about him, and walked out on us. And we all sitting there looking like dummies. I said, what's wrong with this man? Don't he know he's supposed to talk to the students? And so I said, he'll be back. That's what I said. I said, he'll be back. It took us almost about a whole year for us to negotiate making him come back. And what I did was that I knew the smartest fellow on campus named Robert Miller. He had never made a B in his life till he got to Alabama and him all A's. He made A's in kindergarten. Now, you know that's something. This fellow was the smartest fellow I met, and he could read a book. And once he turned the page, he never had to go back to it. He was smart. And we was good friends. So I said, Miller, why don't you run for the president student body? He said, what we gonna do? I said, well, we can do some things if you run. I said, but you got to run, man. Everybody vote for you. You're the smartest guy on the campus. So he decided to run, and he won. Then I said, now let's write up some grievances. And we all sat down and wrote some grievances up. And some of the things we talked about is the campus, the library being closed too early. By the time we got through eating, the library was closed, so we couldn't go to the library. Our professors never did any work like college professors supposed to do to get grants and studies on it. We never had, they just had PhDs, never did anything that PhDs supposed to do. So we wrote all about that. And we wrote about the girls going in too early and all that. And so we had a bunch of grievances that we took back to the president then. This is about a year later now, after he walked out of the first meeting. And so he looked at the grievance and said, okay, I agree that I can do most of those things and to go back and tell the student body that. I said, you want me to go back and tell the student body that you said that you're gonna honor this and you don't give me nothing in writing? I said, no, I can't do that. Because if you don't do it, it's my ass gonna be on the grill when the students look at somebody, they're gonna look at me. I said, why don't you just put it in writing? And that insulted him. He walked out on the second time. I said, that's the last time you walk out on me. Then we got together and wrote up a little pamphlet calling for all students to boycott classes. And we passed those leaflets out. Only 10 students went to class. And we boycotted that school, closed that school down for about almost 3 weeks before he sat down and talked to us again. And then we kind of settled those arguments and we got the little things we asked for and we went back to school. But from then on, I was a target on the campus. They told me I'd never graduate. I told him I would if I had all the credits. And I know I had more credits than I needed to graduate. And I'm almost senior now. I'm on scholarship. Now you know what happened to me. They didn't take my scholarship, but they took my room and board. I don't have no place to stay. So I'm coming home, right? That's what they think. It was a man named Johnny Holloway. You know Congress Holloway played UTC? His father, his name was Congress Holloway, lived right down from the campus. I said, let me go down and see who this Holloway fellow is. He might be a relative of mine. I had been planning on introducing myself to him anyway, but I just never got around to it. But I need a place to stay. So I go down there and introduced myself to him. I said, my name is Johnny Holloway. He looked at me, he said, you Johnny Holloway's son? I said, yeah. That's my second cousin. I said, well. I said, I need a place to stay. He said, what you mean, don't you? He said, they took my room and board from me because of my activities on campus. And I told him the story just like I told you. He said, okay, you can stay with me. And his wife had just divorced him, so he had 2 children he needed to raise. So I helped raise Congress Holloway and his sister for almost 2 years.
See, and there again, you're just an activist.
No, I'm not.
That's activism.
I know it, but it's not things I intended to do.
It may not have been intended.
But I'm saying divine intervention caused a lot of that to take place.
Whatever the case may be, you were an activist, and you have been.
Well, because people always kind of, well, because the system, I think it's the system that says the limit in what I want to do. And the system challenged me, I challenged the system back.
Okay. And I can understand that. But the word is activist.
Okay.
Okay. And that's what you are. That's what you've been. You've been that all your life, it appears.
I have, but it's nothing that I had planned on.
Okay. Well, life doesn't always let us do what we plan to do.
Yeah, that's true.
You know. So now we got college. I think we probably got the degree, did we not?
Well, George Key, I was working with George. When I left Alabama, I started working with George Key to build houses. And that's another story. We were building those.
Now this is Principal George Key.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't a principal then. They had taken his principalship from him because he had done some things that were furthering black people that wasn't supposed to be done. He was raising money outside of the rules and regulations for the students.
Well, I was old enough at that time because I went to Chattanooga where he was the principal.
And he raised a lot of money for you too, because he did it for me too. I was the same thing.
Okay. So I know about that, but
yeah. So George Key was building, you know, on Germantown, not Germantown, but right there at where Reverend Edwards Museum is, right there, right? Wilcox. Wilcox and that German, what's that hill to go up there, come right down by his museum?
Wilcox and Greenville.
Greenwood Road.
Greenwood Road, yeah.
We were building houses up on Greenwood Road in the 50s, late 50s.
Okay. Carousel.
Yeah, that's where white people live now. We were building houses for Negroes up there where white people live, and so we had a hard time. They wouldn't let us have no water till we get water on the site, and so we were building. I was drawing the plans,
okay,
and it was for a company in Georgia that I was drawing the plans for, and he was paying me to draw the plans. I was also building models of the homes, little models on. And the reason you build a model, if you building a home and you really want to see how it looked before you finalize the plans, you really want to see how it looks, so you build a model of it. And it's very cheaper. It's cheaper to do that than to try to change the building once you got it up, once you start building, because when you try to change a wall, it's very expensive. Okay. So I built a few models for the company, and they looked at them. They liked it. That was a selling point for them, too, because they could take the model and show the people what they're going to get. So I built the models, and I did the plans for the house. And so his company was down in Georgia, and I was drawing the plans over there at my mother's house at that. When I got out, left college and came home, that's what I couldn't get a job anywhere in Chattanooga, because I wanted to be an assistant to an engineer, because I wanted to be an engineer, and I was trying to do that. So nobody would hire me in Chattanooga, and I wouldn't take the kind of job they wanted me to have. So I started out working with George Key, building homes and stuff. And the company, I don't know the name of the company I was working for at the time, but he said to me, the white man said to me, so why don't you come down to the company and work down there? Because he got a good drafting room and everything down there, and a nice place to work, because I was working in my bedroom and all that. So I said, okay. And not really thinking it through. And when I went down to the plant where they assembled, they build all the walls in the plant, so they would prefabricate the homes. And so you put them out there. So I'm sitting down there, and there's a big window right there where I'm sitting. Everybody can see me. Them white folks looked down there that were building the houses and saw me, and they went on strike because I was drawing the plans. But I was drawing them all along. I just drawing them on my house. My name was on the plan. They just didn't know who Johnny Holloway was. And when they found out who I was, they went on strike. They wasn't going to build no houses that was drawn by a black man. And I said, this is crazy. And so he looked at me and said, look, Johnny, he said, they done walked out on me. He said, they said, I said, well, we had a pretty good relationship going. It wasn't your fault. I couldn't sue him because I was already working for him. He was already paying me pretty good money. So I said, we'll go back to our old situation. And so I came back over in my bedroom, drawing the plans and everything. And we was up there on Greenwood, and we were putting the and the same people that boycotted me had to come on the site in which I was a foreman to help me put the house up. Now they didn't know all this. So this guy was up on the top, and he dropped his hammer, and he asked me to give it to him. And I looked at him, said, come down there and get it your damn self. I ain't giving you nothing. And he couldn't understand that. And so he went to the guy that owned the plant, owned the company, and said, what's wrong with it? And he told him, said, that's the fella y'all boycotted. Now you working on his site. And boy, we got quiet around there with but we still built the houses. That's the main thing. We were trying to be a house for black people, and that's the main thing. All the rest of it is just side notes.
But there again, that activism.
Yeah, but then again, it's divine intervention too.
Okay, I'll leave that alone. It is divine intervention, but it's activism in you.
Yeah.
Makes you do the things that you do. Okay.
But also they were bullies that were messing with me.
Hey, you already told me you ain't gonna be lenient with a bullet.
That's right.
So we got George Key. We got the houses being built, and eventually George Key become president of the NAACP and things of that nature. But you're still with him, is that correct?
Right. I was vice president of ACP at the time.
We're moving into.
But let's sell this. The way I got my degree from Alabama, and then told me they weren't gonna give me my degree. I told George Key one day, I'm gonna have to get me a lawyer. He said, for what? I said, they haven't sent me my degree yet. He said, haven't sent you the degree? He said, did you qualify? I said, yeah, I had more credits than I needed. And he looked at my resume and everything. He said, let me write a letter. He said, I know some people at Alabama and them. George Key wrote a letter down there, and they sent me my degree.
Okay.
That's how I got my degree.
There's that village again.
There's that divine intervention again too.
Okay, so now we got our degree. We worked for George Key. George Key has become president of the NAACP.
I'm the vice president.
Now we're moving into that civil rights era.
That's right.
Let's talk a little bit about it, because you went to work for the Action
Coordinating Council.
Coordinating Council. Okay.
That's my first move into civil rights. Well, when I came home from the military, see, I've been through the military, and I had some experience in the military too. That's kind of weird. I came home from the military, and the first thing I saw when I came home was the electric power board building down here on 9th Street.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that great big old building and I said, what in the world is this? And the first thing went in my mind, they getting ready to take 9th Street. That's the first thing went in my mind. So I started talking to all the merchants on 9th Street because I knew them all the club owners, I knew them all. And I said, y'all got to start getting together. I said, y'all got to form an alliance or a business or something. Y'all got to have a business alliance or something. Y'all got to get y'all stuff together. I told them, I said, now y'all got to stop putting them pennies behind them fuses and all that stuff. You know how they used to do.
Right.
I said, because they're going to take 9th Street from you. And they didn't listen. That's all I got to say. They didn't listen to me. So I left it alone. And what happened?
A few decades later, they
That's right. But that's how they work. They work in decades. See, I took city planning in college.
And it's always 20 years out.
Yeah. They always about 10, 12 years ahead of you in that city planning. Yeah. You run around here think they getting ready to go to the suburbs. They come back from the suburbs into the city and they send you out to the suburbs.
Exactly. So talk a little bit about that era. That's the beginning of your civil rights movement.
Yeah, I came home and I looked at, I said, there's got to be something. That's the first paper I wrote. And I wrote it on the needs of the black community. And unity was the greatest need we had. And then I wrote some things about why it couldn't happen and the reason black people couldn't get together. And in the black success black people had in business and stuff had to be backed by white people and all that kind of stuff. I wrote all that stuff. And I'm going to give that paper to you. You can look at it.
Okay.
And then when I wrote that paper, and then I started looking around for an organization that I could make what I put on paper happen. And the only organization I saw was the Action Coordinating Council. It wasn't my desire to go with the Action Coordinating. It was the best thing happening for black folks. That's all I could see.
Now, who was leading that at the time?
Reverend Wright.
H.H. Wright.
H.H. Wright, and he was something else.
Okay.
And so I started working with Reverend Wright, and he said, I'm going to make you the coordinator of the Action Coordinating Council. So I was the coordinator of the Action Coordinating Council. And the first thing we was going to do was clean up the black community. See, in this community out here in Churchville and Avondale and Bushtown and all the communities around here, white people that had junkyard business would have them in the black community. And we had a bunch of junkyards in this community. And so we're going to clean up our community of junkyards. Now that means we're taking the white establishment on kind of, but not exactly. And so and Massengill was the biggest violator of that. And he had 2 or 3 junkyards in our community. A junkyard here for building materials. He had a junkyard there. Junkyards for old cars. He had a junkyard for that. He had a junkyard for everything in our community, but he didn't live in it. So we was trying to get Massengill to move out, take all them junkyards, take them over into his community. And that was our main goal. So we started protesting and demonstrating and marching and going to City Hall and all those things we do. And then people started taking notice. And so Massengill started feeling the heat, and we was protesting. We were picketing Massengill's business and all them junkyards he had. Churches started paying attention to us. And so we were doing a pretty good job. We did succeed to get Massengill out of the black community, and we cleaned it up. But that triggered something else to us too. But while we was talking about cleaning up our own community, the Ku Klux Klan took note of us. And so they got in touch with us, and they want to meet with the NAACP about us cleaning up our community. This is the crazy thing in the world. And I said, now the same people that wanted to meet with us back then is the same people that shot the people on 9th Street.
Okay.
The same people.
Okay.
But they talked to us first, so they tried. And they really wasn't a real coordinated effort of the Klan. They were some people who want to be Klansmen.
Okay.
They want to be Klansmen. They trying to make a name for themselves to be seen by and recognized by the major Klan groups. That's what they was. And so they figured if they meet with the NAACP, they get national news and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of people in the black community didn't want us to meet with the Ku Klux Klan. I said, man, I'll meet with anybody who's interested in helping the black community. I don't care who they are. So we had a little meeting at the NAACP office. They came up there with the little robes on. It was kind of funny. And so we told them that they had to take the robes off. So they took the robes off. So we came into the office. We was sitting around, and the head of the Klan. I got all the newspaper clippings back there in files now. I just got clippings of all this stuff. And so the head of the newspaper, he gonna stand up. Now if you understand the dynamics of that, the people who's standing up in the meeting is the one in charge of the meeting.
Exactly.
So we understand the dynamics of all that. So I'm looking at him, I'm kind of smiling. I said, if you're gonna sit down and negotiate, you ought to sit down. You can't stand up and negotiate. I said, you either gonna sit down or you gonna leave. So he finally sit down, we start talking. So they wanted to give us some money to clean up the streets, clean up garbage in the streets, I said, that's what I pay taxes for. I said, we don't have street sweepers in our streets like we have street sweepers in your street. That's what we are fighting for. Equal treatment for equal taxation. That's what we fighting for. And that was true. When the garbage man came around our neighborhood and they spilled some garbage, they just left it there. And we got together and started taking pictures of all that. We followed them up on Lookout Mountain. You know what they did up on Lookout Mountain? They didn't even put the garbage out on Lookout Mountain. They went up there and got them people garbage from where it was sitting inside their house and brought them down to the street and emptied them. We documented that. I said, ain't this some shit? And Reverend Wright looked at me and said, well, that's the way it goes. And so we started talking about it in the media. The difference between the treatment in the black community and the white community. And so we was doing pretty good, and the Klansmen said they were gonna give us some money to do certain things. Then I said, I'll tell y'all what you can do. I said, just to cut this meeting short, I said, you can give us some money, but you can't tell us how to do it. I said, we make the decision in the black community, you don't. I said, if you want to help us, you give us some money and we decide to use it. That's the way I have told everybody. You can't dictate to us because you let us have a few pennies. And they looked at me and everybody got quiet. I just said it. Everybody got quiet. And so I said, now if y'all want us to write a grant and y'all want to give us some money, I said, I'll write the grant, you give us the money, and that's the end of it. We're gonna spend it like we want to. That ended that settled the whole thing with them. We didn't ever see them no more.
There's that activism again.
Well,
okay, now this is the Action Committee.
The Action Coordinating Council Committee.
Action Coordinating Council. I apologize. And this is Reverend Wright.
Right.
Okay. Now, later on in life, you moved from there.
Gradually.
Yeah, but you moved from there into another role.
Yes.
Let's head toward that role.
Well, the reason I moved from the Action Coordinating Council, we were doing pretty good in the Action Coordinating. We could put 200 people in the street almost. We would call it instant pickets in the Action Coordinating Council. We all had pickets in the back of our cars. And anytime anybody said something was going wrong, our answer was picket it. We'd picket anybody, anytime. We didn't make no difference. We picked a Jewish restaurant once. We picket anything. We just figured everybody wrong but us. We was on the right thing in America. That was our feeling. Everybody wrong. Whole thing was screwed up and we straightened it out. Right. So we would call the instant pickets. And I tell you this one day down here when they had McDonald's on Market Street, you remember that? Right. So somebody came to the Action Coordinating Council talking about how they treat the employees down there at McDonald's. So let's go picket. That's the first thing we said. So we down there picking them. And the lady inside said, Johnny, the manager want to see you in here. So I'm thinking the manager is just another white person. And I said, you just tell that man, you don't need to talk to me. He just needs to straighten out that mess he got with their employees. And so then the manager came out and talked to me. She was a schoolmate of mine. Black. I said, God, talk. And that taught me another lesson. Things was changing, and you need to do a little more research than you used to. But we went and talked to him at McDonald's, and we got it settled and everything went off all right. But that taught me a lesson that things were changing, and you need to be a little more cautious before you jump out here and just start picking at everybody. You got to do a little more research now. So we start doing a little more research before we picking at everybody.
So now you're into another organization as you move forward.
Yeah, the reason I left, reason we kind of ended the relationship with Reverend Wright decided to run for office. I'm begging Reverend Wright, don't run for office, please. I told Reverend Wright, I said, you can't win dog catching in Chattanooga. I said, if you do, they're going to be able to measure your influence. And if they measure your influence and it's going to measure up to nothing, you through. And I told him that. And he ran anyway. He ran for mayor. He didn't try to run for council, but he ran for mayor. I said, man, you can't win the mayor's office. I said, no, black people won't vote for you. And he went ahead on and ran anyway and came out just like I said. And I said, well, you through. Ain't no use me spending no time trying to. And by this time, a lot of other things was happening. And
yeah. So about this time, now we're at a place where you got Johnny Franklin over there as city commission.
Yeah.
And now your minister's trying to get on the county commission.
Before then, we created the Unity Group, though.
The Unity Group is coming up. Because the Unity Group was behind pushing Johnny.
That's right. That's one reason the Unity Group came into being, was to get a black elected official.
Right. So talk a little bit about the Unity Group and I guess the way it was born.
Yeah. As far as I know, there might have been some meetings before we had the major meeting. I wasn't in on the preliminary meeting, said we need a Unity Group. But if you read the paper I wrote, that's something I had always said, we need such a group. Right. I didn't call it the Unity Group, but I mentioned such a group.
But you've always talked about being unified.
Yeah, I always talk about being unified. See, what was wrong with the black community, we was over-organized. Okay. You still that way, but it's not bad as it used to be. Okay. Still that way. We had, and all those organizations was backed by some white group. Right. And I said, you can't get nowhere like this. We had 10 to 12 organizations, and all of them had 10 people, and ain't nobody doing nothing. And so I said we need to unify into a single group or something. And eventually came through the Unity Group. And it did happen. But the Unity Group was born at the major effort to bring the Unity Group was during the time that they had this riot, so-called riot at the auditorium. We had this singer here, I can't think of it. Wilson Pickett, is that who it was? Yeah. Yeah. And we had a little disturbance. They drew it up as a riot, but I didn't think it was a riot. It was just a disturbance.
Well, it became a riot because the police is...
Well, the police rioted.
That's who started the riot.
The police rioted. Yeah. And a fellow was killed on the south side. And the mayor asked some of the leaders in the black community to come together to try to smooth this period over. And we met at
Cosmopolitan?
No, we met up at the Franklin Strickland Funeral Home. That's where it was. On Central Avenue. That's where the Unity Group was officially born. Now, there was a lot of little meetings that went on to talk about how we're going to do this, but that's when they called everybody together at that meeting. And when I walked in, and I wasn't too big on it because I really didn't know what these people were going to do because I had never worked with them before. And so I went to the meeting, and I walked in there, and I saw white people in there. I said, what is this? I said, how can we have a black meeting with white people in it? And everybody looked at me like I was crazy. And I was saying this with white people present. That was the same thing. I said, y'all can't have no meeting with white people in here for black people. And so we had to have a debate on that. And so the white people solved our problem. They just said, we'll just leave. So the white people left, and we had the meeting about how we're going to solve this problem. And what the essence of it was that we got some money for the fellow that was killed and gave it to his parents from the city. And then we started having other little meetings to try to smooth over this whole thing that was happening because this fellow got shot during this time. And it worked very well. And a newspaper article came out about a black organization called BUG. Now, the white people had named us BUG, Black Unity Group. I said, this is crazy. They're going to call me a bug? I said, just drop the B and call us a unity group. And that's how the unity group got born out of that movement. And then we decided we had to have something that the unity group could rally around every year. And that was the Martin Luther King birthday celebration. That's how the unity group was born.
So now we're going from the unity group, and you became a national leader, so to speak. The Push Rainbow Coalition.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Well, you president.
I know. Well, what happened now? Reverend Richards was doing his thing. Reverend Richards and Reverend Edwards was an entity unto themselves. And they were doing their thing for the movement. And Reverend Richards was trying to help a union, I don't know which union it was, to unionize Erlangen. And it got kind of big, it got beyond what he was capable of doing. So he came to the Action Coordinating Council and asked the Action Coordinating Council to help him. So Reverend Wright said, yeah, we'll help you. And so we started working with Reverend Edwards and Reverend Richards to try to unionize Erlangen. Erlangen is not unionized today. We failed at that. But what happened, you remember a guy named Bibbins?
Yeah.
And Bibbins was a kind of hanger-oner. He was the kind of guy who could talk, he could really say things.
He was very articulate.
He was very articulate, but he was a con man. He was a con, and he could really talk, and he would always hang around the movement and like he part of the movement, and he would get on television and radio, and the people really liked him. The white people really liked him because he was a diversion from what the whole group was trying to do. And they would always, and he said something in the media one day. He said, we're gonna bring, if they don't straighten this mess out in Chattanooga, we're gonna bring Jesse Jackson here. And when he said that, that went all over the black community like wildfire. Right. I said, man, that guy said something. I said, I don't know what he said, but he said something about Reverend, and it just caught everybody's imagination. Reverend Jesse Jackson coming to Chattanooga. And I told the preachers, I said, y'all just got to make Reverend Jesse Jackson come here, because that's something. I don't know what it is, but that Bibbins fella said something.
Yeah, he did.
He said something now. You can call him what he want to, but he said something now. And I said, we got to make it happen. And so the preachers got in touch with Reverend Jesse Jackson. And Reverend Jesse Jackson sent a team in here about 3 or 4 weeks before he came here. And he did a study on Chattanooga. Chattanooga black leadership and white leadership. He did a study on them. And when he came here, he knew more about Chattanooga than most Chattanoogans. And one of the stipulations he had when he came here was that we have to start a chapter of Operation Push in Chattanooga. Well, we was having dinner down there, Olivet Baptist Church, after we went through all them rallies and things. And he said, who's going to be the organizer of the chapter here? All the preachers turned to me and said, Johnny Holloway. This is the first time I heard about this. I said, what y'all talking about? They said, well, we promised Jackson we'll organize Push chapter. He said, we want you to organize for us. I said, but I don't have time. We got more organization we need. We don't need another organization. And I was against it. And this is the craziest thing that happened to me in the whole movement. Reverend Jesse Jackson said, we leaving here tonight. And it's 12 o'clock already. He said, we leaving here tonight, going all across the state of Tennessee, and we want you to go with us. I said, I can't go with you. I said, I work at TVA. Jesse Jackson looked at me and said, who is your pastor? I said, Reverend McDaniel. Reverend McDaniel said, no. He said, Reverend McDaniel, you know where he work? He said, yeah. He said, go tell him to put him on leave. He going with me across the state of Tennessee. Just like that. He did it just like that. And I said, I was just saying to myself, this man is crazy. Then I said, well, what about my wife? I haven't been home all day. I've been running around here with you. Haven't been home. I said, somebody got to tell my wife. He looked at my pastor again and said, tell his wife where he's going. And I said, I haven't packed any clothes. I haven't done anything. Just clothes on my back. He said, we'll buy you clothes as we go along. That's what Jesse Jackson said. And I'm looking at this man. I said, this man is crazy. And so I was against it. So Jesse Jackson and I going all the way across the state of Tennessee, and we're arguing about whether we should have a push chapter in Chattanooga.
While you're traveling?
While we're traveling. And I'm going to all these meetings with him. And so we got to Memphis. And he said, it had to be in the 70s. I can't think of what it is. I had to look it up. Okay. And we got to Memphis. And they had 52,000 people in a stadium in Memphis, Tennessee. I'd never seen a crowd like that in a rally for black people. I'd never seen that many black people in the same place talking about the interests of black people. And I just thought this was something. I said, this man got some juice, boy. And so he took up a little collection, and we had about $50,000. Jackson came over to me and gave me a package with the money in and said, you hold this for me. And I'm scared to death. I got about $50,000. And I've always had my back to the wall. I wasn't moving. And we kept debating this thing. And he said, I want you to vision something for me, Johnny. I said, what do you want me to vision? He said, I want you to vision Chattanooga. He said, I know Chattanooga got too many black organizations. It's just too many of them. He said, but the only way we can put them together is you think of the organization of the black community like you do a patch quilt.
Like a patch quilt?
Yeah, it's like you do a quilt.
Okay.
And he said, and then you're going to put them all together with thread, just like you make a quilt. Mm-hmm. And he said, Operation Push is going to be the thread to tie all of them together. Now that fit, when you read my paper, you'll see that fits right in.
This paper here.
When you read that fit right in what I wrote in the 60s. Okay. That's the same idea I had, that we got to pull the black community together and we got to have a coordinating committee. That's what I want the Action Coordinating Council to be. Right. But they never did get there. And so, and that's what sold me on just to have a push chapter here.
So that's why you took the position.
That's why I took the position. That's why I took the position. Because I could see it just as plain as day.
Okay. So talk a little bit about the work of Operation Push here in Chattanooga and the things you were able to accomplish. Let me pause 1 minute. Johnny, if I have to come back, is it all right?
Oh, you can come back many times you want to. I'm here by myself. You're welcome anytime. You don't have to bring the cameras. You come to back and talk to me anytime you want.
Get the rest of this on film.
Okay.
But I'm going to have to leave because I got this curiosity.
Yeah, I know what you said.
Okay, and I apologize for that.
That ain't no apology. That ain't no problem.
Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about it, and then I'm going to cut you off right
Okay.
there. Talk a little bit about the work.
Operation Push, you have 3 entities of Operation Push. You have Push, which is the parent organization. Mm-hmm. You have Operation Push, which is the legal and the economic arm of Operation Push. Then you have Push XL, which is the educational arm of Operation Push. We are Operation Push. We are the political and legal arm and educational arm of Operation Push. Not the educational arm, but the economic arm of Operation Push. That's what Push is. And so we start chapters here, and the first thing we got to do, we got to get us a board. Mm-hmm. And you got to have more preachers on the board than you have anybody else. That's the criteria for Jesse Jackson. Well, we couldn't get preachers to be on the board. I got everybody else but the preachers. And so Reverend Caldwell was the chairman. Mm-hmm. of Operation Push. So I went to Reverend Conwell and said, Reverend Conwell, we can't get preachers to commit to being on the board. So I said, you and Jesse get together, y'all work that out, because I just can't get them. All the preachers I go to just give me the runaround. And so Reverend Caldwell and Jesse Jackson got together on the phone, and they decided that we would have the clergy connoisseur as our board for the preachers. And what that did, that gave the preachers that wanted to identify with Push at a given time, they could, and when they want to opt out, they could, and so that's how we worked that out. We had the clergy connoisseur as the board, not preachers, but we needed name of people. So we went along with that for the time being. Jesse Jackson, we'll go along with that for about 4 or 5 years, but them preachers got to put their name down sometime.
They're looking for some cover there.
They're looking for cover. So that's how they got the cover. The next thing went wrong was we needed a church home, because we had to set up in the church. We had to have a radio connection because we had to do the push service every Saturday. And so I couldn't find a church home. I went back to Reverend Caldwell again. So Reverend Caldwell, I don't have a church home. And what they came up with was that we would rotate between churches. We wouldn't be at one place all the time. And I learned out why all this was going to happen to us later. But it did happen. And so we would stay at one church for 3 months, maybe 4 months, as long as the church will let us. And then we moved to another church. But nobody never knew where we were, though. Everybody was looking, they'll find us at one church and they look for us again at that church, we go on to another church. So that's a problem. But that's what we had to live with for a long time, because no church wanted that pressure. And I can tell you about that pressure too. It was something else, boy.
All right, we're going to stop right there.
Okay.
When I come back, we're going to pick up with the pressure.
Okay.
And I apologize for that. Give
Well.
me your feelings about that.
Well, the unity group was born out of Wilson Pickett was supposed to come here to sing, and he didn't come. So there was some disturbance. I called it disturbance. The police called it a riot. It was just a disturbance. And if the police hadn't shown up, it wouldn't have been as much as that. It wouldn't have been a disturbance. But out of that disturbance, a fellow out south got killed. And that's what really caused some distress in the black community, because at one time taking a black life was real serious with us in Chattanooga. I remember the fella got killed down to Loveman's, and that was a big thing about that. And we'll talk about that probably later. But that was and a group of black people got together at Franklin Strickland's funeral home at that time to try to quiet the community down, and we did. And the newspaper called us Bug, the Black Unity Group. And I got mad over the name because I'm not a bug. And everybody said, I said, why you just can't call us a Unity Group? Just forget the B part. And so we did. And that created, and we was able to get some money and give to the family of the fellow that got killed. And then the mayor asked us to stay together. And so we were looking for something to send our activities around, and that became the Martin Luther King birthday celebration, and we've been doing that ever since. And that was back in the 60s, I believe. No, the early 70s. And we've been doing the Martin Luther King birthday celebration every time. We had a change of leadership about three or four times by now. And we're still doing that. So that was a good thing. And that propelled us into the national news a lot, because we was one of the best and one of the largest Martin Luther King birthday celebrations in the nation at the time. And that kind of upset some of the white leadership, because we was written up in the national newspapers that we were the most progressive leaders in the city, and that left white people out, and they was kind of upset about that. So Jack Lupton called a meeting to try to show that they was in the leadership, in which what they really was, but because they had all the money. So we had a meeting of the black leadership with Jack Lupton. He said he also had a meeting with the white leadership. And and what we could do to bring the city together and all that kind of thing. And so after the meeting with Jack Lupton, he asked us not to say too much about it. And I looked at Jack Lupton and said, well, sir, I got an organization I report to every Saturday, and I have to report to them on the activities and the meetings I attend during the week, and all the members do that. And so he tried to tell me what to say and all that. I said, now, I'm just going to report on this meeting. That's all I'm going to do. And so he sent Johnny Franklin to me later on to tell me he didn't want me anymore in his meetings. And I told Johnny Franklin, since you carry messages from Jack Lupton, I want you to carry one back to him. You tell Jack Lupton that I have meetings too, and I don't want him in my meeting. Now you take that back to Jack Lupton. And that led to one thing between Jack Lupton and I, but we got together and we started having meetings again. And so that's how the unity group was born.
Okay. So Jack didn't really understand how persistent and as you say resilient that you really are at that time were, and he didn't understand how arrogant you were.
Well, you can use the word arrogant if you want to, but I'm not an arrogant person.
To them, you were.
I know to them, but see, I define myself. I don't let them define me.
Well,
Nobody define me but myself.
exactly.
And a lot of people used to call me radical, and that's their definition of me. But I know I'm an activist. I'm an activist because what was happening to me was not happening to me because I was Johnny Holloway. It was happening to me because I was black, and I react to that.
Okay.
That's the reason I call myself an activist.
And in that vein, as an activist, how did you get started with the Push Coalition? How did that come about?
Well, that was a strange situation. Reverend Richards was working with the unions, trying to unionize Erlanger Hospital. I never will forget it. And it got too kind of big for him. He kind of got out of it. It was getting too big for him to handle. So he asked Reverend Wright, who was over the Action Coordinating Council, and I was the coordinator of Action Coordinating Council. So he came to us and asked them to help us, try to unionize Erlanger. And we said yes. And I never will forget this. You remember Bibbins?
Yes.
Somehow in that activity of trying to unionize the hospital, we was all on the radio and television and everything. And Bibbins was a kind of a loner. He was always able to attract attention. He was always get the media's attention, but he didn't have an organization. He played like he had an organization and everything. But he was a con man, really. And he said that if y'all don't get this situation settled, I'm going to bring Jackson in this town. He said that to the media. And I really didn't have much feeling for Jesse Jackson. I didn't know much about him, just heard about him. But when he said that on the media, it just went all over the black community. And it just electrified the black community. I mean, I just heard everybody talking about Jesse Jackson. I said, well, what the hell? How did this happen? And so they started talking about Bibbins. And I told the preachers, I said, we got to make that happen because this is something. Everybody think this is a good thing. And people are really excited about Jesse Jackson coming to Chattanooga. And that's all I said to the preacher. Y'all got to make that happen. And so they called up to Chicago, and Jesse Jackson said, I would be glad to come to Chattanooga, but one of the stipulations is that you start a Push chapter in Chattanooga. But in the meantime, Jesse Jackson sent 3 people from his organization into Chattanooga about 3 or 4 weeks before he came here, just to study the city of Chattanooga. He knew as much about the city of Chattanooga almost as I did when he first came here. He studied. He just knew all the personalities and everybody. He knew all about white folks. He knew all about the black folks. He knew all about the leadership. He knew a lot about Chattanooga, and I was shocked. I was surprised. And he told me later that's what you do before you go into a town. You got to know the town before you go in it. You got to know who the players are. You got to know who the leaders are. You got to know the organizations. He knew all about the organization and everything. He knew all of us. So he did come to Chattanooga. And he did a little thing about Erlangen. He got up there and had the big rallies and all that, what Jesse Jackson does. And so we was down to Olivet Baptist Church on 9th Street eating that night. So he said, who's gonna be the coordinator to organize the push chapter? All the preachers turned to me and said, Johnny Holloway. That's the first time I heard about it. And I didn't want another organization because I had already written some papers about one of the problems with the black community in Chattanooga, that we had too many organizations. We had a whole lot of organizations. Everybody had 10 people and none of them doing anything. You can't accomplish anything with 10 people. Ain't nobody gonna listen to 10 people. And you're not rich. You don't have no building. You're not a preacher. And everybody got 10 people and you run around here acting like you're a leader. And so I was against having another organization because we just had too many. That's my philosophy. And so then I was trying to find all the reasons why I couldn't do this. And so Jesse Jackson was going across the state of Tennessee that time, organizing. So he said, I want you to go with me across the state of Tennessee while we organize. I looked at him and said, you want me to do what? He said, you gonna travel with me? I said, I got a job, man. He said, well, who is your preacher? I said, Rab McDaniel. He said, Rab McDaniel, you know where he worked? He said, we tell his boss and put him on leave while he go with me. I looked at that guy, I said, this guy is crazy. And I said, I haven't even been home. We was gonna leave that night after he ate. I said, I haven't been even tell my wife or nothing. I got to go tell my wife. He asked Reverend Jackson to go by his house to talk to my wife about me leaving with Jesse. I don't have no clothes. I don't have no. He said, we're gonna buy you some clothes. We don't have time for you to go home back. And I just looked at him. And Reverend McDaniel said, yeah, I can do that. That's how I called my wife before I left. But Reverend McDaniel did come by and talk to her. And she was already buying into everything I did anyway. And that's another thing I'm gonna tell you about too, is my family. My family bought into everything I was doing. Most people don't know that. Because we sit down and had our little home meeting about what I was getting ready to get into. But so I left with Jesse Jackson going, because we went to Jackson, Tennessee, we went to Memphis, Tennessee. But when we got to Memphis, Tennessee, it was amazing. But before we got to Memphis, we were just arguing across the state of Tennessee. I said, I don't see no need for Operation Push. And he trying to show me why. He told me all about, that's when I learned about how much he knew about Chattanooga. And he looked at me and said, you're the most credible leader in Chattanooga at the grassroots level. That's what he told me. He said, that's the way the people feel about you. I didn't even know that myself. He said, you have good credibility about the grassroots people, but he said, but everybody else don't have too much to say about you. he said, but the grassroots people kind of love you. And so I laughed at him, and we went on to talk about that a little while, and then I told him, but I just don't see no need for another organization. They ain't doing nothing but crowding us out. We can't get nothing done because too many of us. So he said, let me tell you how you solve that problem. And this is the way he got me. He said, you look at Chattanooga like you look at all black communities because all of you got the same problem. You got too many organizations. So Operation Push is gonna be like the thread. You look at all them organizations like you're gonna put a quilt together. You're gonna take them, and Operation Push is gonna be the thread that ties them all together. So you're gonna be the person that's gonna belong to every organization. And you're gonna report on every organization, every Saturday at the push meeting, what they're doing. He said, that's gonna be your job. And I said, I can't go to every meeting of these organizations. You don't have to. You just have people to go, and y'all come back and report every Saturday on what the organizations are doing. He said, you got to have at least 12 people to go to all of these meetings. And every Saturday morning, you have to push meeting. Y'all talk about what all the organizations are doing, and you try to support them. You try to get the other organizations to support them. That's what you do. You're the thread that's going to tie them all together, and you become the quilt. Now that kind of philosophy, because I saw my grandmother and my mother make quilts. So I kind of knew what he was talking about. We got some quilts now that we do that with T-shirts. And I kind of liked that idea. And I said, that might be worth trying. That's how he sold me on organizing Operation Push.
Okay, so you talked a little bit about your family's buy-in. So at this point, talk a little bit about that. How you
Well,
sit down with your wife and your children.
when I came back from,
Young at that time.
yeah, we were real young. We just got married. And so when I came back from the military, you know, when I used to come back from college, I would always go to 9th Street before I come home. I'd ride the bus. That's the place to go. And you talk to all the fellas. You see all the fellas on 9th Street. And you talk to the prostitutes on 9th Street. You talk to everybody on 9th Street.
And then you know what's happening.
And then you know what's happening. Everybody knew you. And I'd be 2 hours getting home before I got, because I was spending time on 9th Street when I came home from college.
Don't understand that. I did the same thing.
I know we all did that.
Get out the taxi on 9th Street.
That's right. We do that. That's what we do.
You got to make all the rounds.
We got to make all around. And so when I came home from the military, I did the same thing. And I saw that great big telephone building down there for the first time. I said, what in the world is that? On 9th Street? I said, what's going on? And that little mind of mine started working. I said, they getting ready to take 9th Street because they wouldn't be putting the building down here like this.
Where the Liberty Theater was.
That's right. I say, wouldn't people putting the building down here like this if they didn't plan, if white people going to take this place? I can see it coming. So I went down and started talking to the business people. I knew A.L. Jackson and all the business people. I said, y'all got to get y'all act together. I said, y'all got to get an organization or something. Y'all got to get you some kind of business organization, something. Y'all got to do better than you've been doing. I even talked to all the gangsters down there. I knew all of them. Yeah, I talked to all of them. And they didn't listen to me. They thought I was crazy. And I said, the white people gonna take 9th Street. And you look at it today. And did that happen?
Well, it was you know, they do 20-year plans.
Oh, yeah.
And when the first 5 years up, they're working on the next 20 years.
Yeah, that's when Jack Lupton and I got together again because they put me on the planning commission for the city. Mm-hmm. And that's when I found out what really was going on. We was dealing 30 years ahead of what anybody knew.
Right. And the same thing today.
It's the same thing. It hadn't changed. And so and then I got and I came home and I told my wife what was happening, what I was thinking about doing. She said, well, I had kind of given up on church. I think I told you about that.
No, you didn't talk about that.
I didn't told you about church, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So I came home and talked to my wife. I said, I have looked at all organizations in Chattanooga and I don't find but one fellow that I think I can work with. She said, well, who is that? I said, Reverend Wright with the Ex-Coordinating Council, because he's my kind of preacher. And so I said, now, if I go out here and start doing all this stuff, I got to have the blessings of my family. Because I can't be out here doing all this stuff and I'd be coming home late and I can't come home and the wife mad with me, don't know where I've been and think I'm running around doing everything. And she said, I trust you, Johnny. And she said, and I talked to my boys too, and they were just little children there. Didn't have but 3 at that time. Didn't have but 3 because I was living over here in this apartment over here. And so we all got together, the family said, okay. So we gonna all be together, and we were together on it. And it grew from there, because my wife got involved too. She became the treasurer of the Unity Group. She was the legal arm of the Unity Group. She kept all our letters legal because she was a business major and she was a assistant to Reverend McDaniel. So she kept all our paperwork right. Most people don't know that.
You're right, because I did.
Yeah, she kept all our paperwork right. Anytime we had the program at the auditorium, they brought the money right to this house to be counted. And she was the one that took care of it because she was the treasurer. She helped organize what you call second missionary services. So she told Reverend McDaniel, you can't use the church for these activities because you're a nonprofit. And so you had to get another entity, and we call it Second Missionary Services. Most people don't know we got a Second Missionary Services. That's how the unit group will handle its money. That's how Push handle its money, through Second Missionary Services. That's to keep us legal. And she came up with that. So she write letters. We would write the letters, but she would go over and make sure that all the spelling was right. And she did everything for us legal. So my wife was a big supporter of all the organizations that I was a part of.
So it was almost like it was a family affair.
It was a family affair, but most people don't know that. And my children, and when we started working on Operation Push, it was the same thing. I said, you got to, I said, and we were doing the Push XL program then. I said, y'all got to, I said, it's a good program in Operation Push called Push XL. I said, I want to try it out on y'all and see what y'all think about it. We tried Push XL at my house, just with my sons, before we went to the schools or anywhere before we, and I carried one of my sons to the Push XL exhibition in Chicago, and he loved it. They loved Push XL. They knew all about Push XL before it even got to be public. And so some people would always question why my sons were never with me when I go out. They said, I don't have to go with him. He said, I know what he gonna say before he say it. They said, I know his whole speeches.
You've already practiced.
Because I already practiced on them. So it was a family affair. I couldn't have done it without them.
So Johnny, when we look at where we are today versus where we were yesterday, are we making any progress?
Yes, I would say yes, because the reaction that you're getting today is because of the progress we made yesterday.
Okay.
And I'm gonna talk a lot about Trump too, if it's okay with you guys, because I just,
this is your oil.
Cause he's something else.
Well, while we're talking on that line, because I don't want to get too far away from.
I know.
It's your history,
right?
That I need to have. But while we're talking on that line, you lived a little bit during those Jim Crow days.
Yes.
And the laws that Jim Crow had in those days, it appears that there's some similarity to some of the things they're doing today.
Well, they're trying to take us back to those days and beyond.
Okay.
Trump is trying to take us back to Jim Crow and beyond.
Well, it appears that way.
And no appears to it. See, that's another thing I learned as I reorientated myself to what had happened to me, not because I'm Johnny Holloway, but because I'm a black man.
Okay.
See, they don't know Johnny Holloway. They just see a black man. They don't know nothing about me. They just see me as a black person. They react to my blackness, not to Johnny Holloway, the person. So I'm not important. That's the first thing. That's the first trick they pull on us. They teach you in America that the individual is the most important thing. And what they teach you?
Yeah.
The individual is not important. It's the institution that's important.
Well, and that's always been the way it was brought up in the classroom and everywhere.
Yeah, I taught the same thing. I thought I was the most important thing when I came out of school. But I learned different.
It was the institution.
It's the institutions. It was not the individuals that were doing it to me. It was the institutions that was doing it to me.
Yeah. The individual is collateral damage.
Yeah, he gonna go away, but the institution stays here forever.
The institution stays forever. And that's always the case.
That's always the game.
When your college professor talk to you, that's first they talk to you about that. Political science professors talk to you.
Now that's the man that had the greatest influence on me. I don't know what I said this before or not. Named Mr. Blackwell. He was my political science teacher.
Political science teacher too.
At Alabama A&M?
Yeah.
You went to Alabama A&M?
I went to New Archinob, and he was not Blackwell, Blackshear.
Blackshear. You talk about Miss Blackshear. Now Miss Blackshear had a great influence on me too.
Mr. Blackshear was my political science.
She was a
Mr.
math.
Blackshear.
Miss Blackshear was a math teacher.
Yeah, Mr. Blackshear was my civics teacher.
She's civics teacher. Yeah. Now, but Blackwell was my political science teacher at Alabama A&M. We'll get to that later. Yeah. And he had a great influence on me to the day.
Yeah. So I apologize for that mistake. I was like, you said Black Will,
Yeah.
Black Shield.
Yeah, Miss Black, she also had a great influence on us too.
Yeah, because I worked with her doing the what was this organization bread basket. It was some type of thing for the hunger, doing hunger things
Yeah.
every year around November.
Well, the way she got it, she taught us math, and I'm a math major, and I was pretty good in math. And so one day we had this exchange when we're getting ready for integration. I'm about in the junior in high school now, and we got ready for to. They started talking about integrating the schools and all that crazy crap. And we had what we call the exchange program between high schools, and so we would go to city high school. Some black students would go to city high school, see what they do, and they come over the house and see what we did. So we went to city high school one day, and there was a word on the blackboard I couldn't hardly pronounce. I didn't know what it was. It was calculus. And I said, "What is calculus?" They said, "That's math." Well, I really got interested in it because I thought I could really do some math. I never heard of calculus before. So I asked around, "What is calculus?" And they told me. I said, "We don't have that at Howard. You know, all we had was algebra. We had trigonometry 1 and 2. Then we had geometry. We was through with algebra, and we was through with math when I was a junior. We didn't have no more math classes. But I ran to this thing in my junior year over at City High School back there. So I started asking about it. And I asked Miss Blackshear, I said, "Miss Blackshear, why can't we have calculus? How can we get a calculus class over here?" She said, "You got to have trigonometry before you get calculus." I didn't
know what that was.
didn't have the idea. So I said, "Well, how do you get trigonometry then?" She said, "Well, first you got to have students." I said, "How many students?" She said about 17 students will make up a class, at least 17. And so I asked all of the math people that had took all the math with me, said, "Hey, how come we can't have, let's try to get some trigonometry." They all agreed, they like to take it. Then I asked Miss Blackshear, "What I do now, I got you 17 students." She said, "Well, you go to Mr. Black, you go to Mr. What was his name?
C.C. Bond?
No, not C. Something before him. He was the principal at Howard at the time. I can't think of his name, but I think that's why. But anyway, we went to him, and he looked at me and said, "Well, you got to have a teacher." I went back to Miss Blackshear. "Miss Blackshear, can you teach trigonometry?" She said, "Yes, I can teach trigonometry." Well, we got us a teacher now. We got 17 students. We got a teacher. I went back to the principal, and I asked him, said, not Devonport. Was it Devonport? I think it was. It was Devonport. And Devonport, and he got kind of shaken now because he got to go to the white people and get permission to teach us trigonometry, which they didn't want us to learn. See, all they want us to do is wait tables and be waiters and be preachers and be lawyers. For black people, they didn't want us to do nothing that really could advance us.
Exactly.
And so I went back to him, and it kind of shook him up. I didn't know what was wrong with him. I didn't know why I just asked him for trigonometry would cause him all that consternation. He had to go to the board. He had to go to school board. And they wasn't amenable for us having trigonometry at Howard. And so so now I'm almost senior now, see. And so they figured that they've kind of figured that we're gonna ride this out till he leave and goes wherever he going, to the army or work or either to school. And so he drug it out on me, and he drug it out, and they never did say while I was in school about trying to, but every year I was in college, when I came back, first thing I do was go to that school and ask, "Where is this thing about trigonometry?" I stayed on that thing about 2 years when I was a junior in college before they got trigonometry at Howard. That's right. That's how long they decided. They tried to push that off on us. And I would come back home and I'd go straight to the office and start talking to them about it. They got mad at me. They got upset with me. Why don't he leave us alone? He's gone. But I knew it wasn't about me. See, that's because of what was happening to me was happening to me because I was black, not Johnny Holloway, not because of my qualifications or lack of qualifications. It was happening to me because I was black. That's the first time I learned out that it was because I was black. So I began to study everything. Some other thing I learned in school, they tried to teach me that Egypt wasn't in Africa. They told me it was Asia Minor. Did they teach you that?
No, because I always hear no.
You was behind me, but they told me that Egypt wasn't in Africa, it was Asia Minor. I said, I'm looking at the damn map. And I said, that's Africa.
It's always been Africa.
No, it hadn't. They thought it was Asia Minor when I was in school. I knew it was in Africa because I'm looking at it. But in order on the test, I had to put down Asia Minor if I want to pass. That's a fact.
Yeah, they were teaching something else before me.
I know they was, but that's a fact. Okay. Children my age, I'm 88, man. Children my age was taught that was Asia Minor. That was not Egypt. Egypt was not in Africa. You know why they taught us that? Because Egypt was one of the education centers of the world at the time.
Yeah, but
and they didn't want us to believe that we could have something in Africa was that the education center of the world. But Timbuktu is also in Africa, and it was one of the major education centers of the world. All the great philosophers of the world went to Africa to be taught. All of the great philosophers in China, in India, in Europe, went to Timbuktu to be taught. And I'm thinking Timbuktu is in damn Arizona. I'm telling you, they messing you up, boy.
Well, if you're listening, don't read for yourself.
But I'm telling you, that's what I was doing, though. I was re-educating myself. When I found out they were lying to me, I started finding out why they were lying to me. And they were lying to me because I was black, not because I was Johnny Holloway.
It almost sounds like the book, Miseducation of the Negro.
That's right. That's what it was.
Yeah.
See, I went back.
When you read that book, that's what it is.
That's what I read the book.
Yeah. So when you read it, that's exactly what it is.
That's what it is.
I keep that book in my briefcase. I keep it in my satchel.
I probably got it back down there in my record. And so when I found out what they were doing to me, I began to explore it, and I was getting angry. I was getting angry with the system. I didn't get angry with people. I got angry with the system. When I went to college, one of the major things that made me angry with the system in college is my senior year at Alabama A&M. They asked the seniors to do the survey of our campus for the future Alabama A&M. What they thought the future Alabama A&M should be. We surveyed that land. We laid out the future college of Alabama A&M. And the president of the college didn't believe we could do it. His own students, his own professors. He did not ask a certified engineer to go over our work and certify it. He asked them to do it over again and pay them. And he came up with the same damn thing we did. And I got mad in hell. And the campus today, you go down to Alabama A&M today, they laying that campus out the same way we surveyed it. But they paid a white surveyor to come down there and get the same damn information we got. Now that made me mad. And I'm still mad about it.
It sounds like you're still mad about it. Johnny, so expound a little bit about, we talked about the Jim Crow and things of that nature, but expound a little bit about your vision for our city as it is today and how we see it coming tomorrow. I know that you played a major role in trying to get some things changed in this city.
Well, yeah, we changed the form of government. I was the one, but I'm gonna tell you who the person who really changed the form of government. His name was I can't think his name. What was his name? But he was a very active person.
And there was Walter Robertson, there was the Hyman Tyree.
No, none of those fellas. He was active all over the world.
Okay.
And he was, I can't think his name now for nothing in the world, but he called me he was over in Australia one time. He called me from Australia and said he was over there protesting something. I said, where are you? He said, I said, what you doing in Australia? He said, I'm doing the same thing I did in Chattanooga. I can't call his name for nothing now. But anyway, he did all the legal work for changing the form of government in Chattanooga. He did all the legal work. He did all the background work. He compiled the whole thing. And he came to some of us and said, look, he said, I can't put my name on this because it won't go nowhere. He said, but if you can get me about 10 people who put their name on this and fight for change the form of government, he said, y'all can get all the credit. And I wish I could think of his name because
the change from the commissioner
form of government
to the city council that we
to council form of government. That's what it's about. And he did that. And I can't think of his name for nothing there. I called his name after a while though.
So at that time there was a rigmarole about that particular piece.
Yeah.
It came out like Tommy was suing Johnny or something of that nature. Were you a part of that?
Yeah.
Because it was a big thing.
Well, let me tell you how Johnny Franklin played a role in it. Well, we was talking about changing the form of government. So everybody's saying that, well, you got to talk to Johnny Franklin. I said, you can't talk to Johnny Franklin about changing the form of government because he ain't going to be for it. Right. They said, oh, you don't know that. You haven't talked. I said, okay. I said, I'm going to go down there and you're going to talk y'all into circles because he ain't going to be for this. So they wanted to do Johnny Franklin. I told them, you're wasting your time. Because once we had put it all together, they wanted to present to Johnny Franklin to present. I said, y'all out y'all mind. I said, Johnny Franklin ain't gonna be for this. And we had a lot of white people with us too on that effort to change the form of government. So they went to Johnny Franklin and they presented to him, and Johnny Franklin got this number talking to him and around in circles. And I just sit there and laugh. I didn't say nothing because I just knew better. And when they got through and they found out Johnny Franklin wasn't for that. And so I said, I told y'all, you wasting your time talking to Johnny Franklin about that. They said, well, how did you know? I said, because the white people wasn't for it at the time. And Johnny Franklin wasn't going to go against the people that put him in office. I said, we think we put Johnny Franklin in office, but we didn't put Johnny Franklin. We just advocated for Johnny Franklin. White people put Johnny Franklin in office because they voted for it.
Yeah. And he always had more votes than anybody,
yeah.
including America.
And he had more white people than most of them white people had.
We couldn't do that.
We couldn't put him in office. And I knew that. And a politician gonna play to the people who put him in office. It's just that simple. I knew that from the get-go. And so I just kind of laughed and said, now we just got to go over Johnny Franklin. We just got to steamroll it. And that's what we did. But another thing, too, you got to figure out, the lawyer we had was playing both sides of the fence.
Who was your lawyer?
I can't think his name now. I forget all these names. They back there in the file somewhere. But the lawyer, we was for a strong council form of government, right? And the people, our vision, everybody want to change the government. We done got everybody on side to change the government now. But once you make the changes, you start tinkering with it. So you had a group of people who want a weak council but strong mayor. We want a strong council and a weak mayor, right? Our lawyer was playing both sides of the fence. I learned that later. I learned that way later. And so we came up with if you notice, we don't have a strong council form of government. Right. We have a strong mayor form of government. We lost that part of it.
That's strong mayor.
We lost that part of it. So we got a strong mayor form. But I almost called that fella's name that did legal work. I almost called it then.
So, as you
Lorenzo Irvin. You remember him?
Lorenzo Irvin.
I think that was him.
No, Lorenzo Irvin.
No, that's somebody.
Hijacked the airplane.
That's the guy that hijacked the airplane. That's right.
Yeah, he hijacked the airplane.
He went with the Cuba.
Cuba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that guy's name? I can't think of it for nothing in the world.
So, as we were talking, and we've talked about a lot of things because you talked about, you say you're an activist.
Right, I am activist.
You've always been activist.
No, I haven't always been activist. I used to be an individual. You got to remember that. I just believed the American dream.
Well,
All you had to do to go to school, get educated, and be a success. I used to believe in that individual stuff.
You talk growing up.
Yeah, I believed in that individual stuff. I didn't know nothing about the institutions. I just believed in the individual most important thing.
So as long as I've known you, you've been active.
Well, you say okay. I've been active for as long as you've been known. I'm just telling you how I was educated.
I learned of you in the 70s.
Yeah, well, I've been on the earth pretty good while then.
Okay, so like I said, you've lived on Jim Crow. You've seen those laws, and you see the laws that we have today. So what would you say to our young folks? When I say our young folks, our black young folks. What would you say to them?
Well, let me tell you my experience here, Lisa. You remember we had the Martin Luther King birthday celebration, and Kevin Mohammed had a youth council meeting out there on Host Clark. I went to that. I went to just listen to. I like to listen to young people. I have always listened to young people. It's two things I don't do. I don't listen to people. I don't associate with people dumber than me, and I listen to young people. That's two things I always done. Because I feel I can't learn nothing from people dumber than me. And so I always listen to young people. So there's going to be a lot of college kids out there. So I wanted to hear what they had to say. And I was really disappointed. And they told us all about, they was from UTC, and they was telling about all their careers and everything, what they want to do and all that kind of stuff. Same thing that I went through when I was fooled. They fooling us again. And they think the individual is the most important thing. That people from the University of Tennessee right there think the individual is the most important thing. That's a mistake that we making again. And I listened to them, and they talked all about their careers. And Mrs. Varner, Edna Varner used to be Howard President. She's working with the foundation now.
Public Education Foundation.
And she said her job is to try to get black teachers. She asked a question of those young people, and there was a stage full of them. They had to put chairs down in that meeting. So many people came to it. She asked the question, said, how many of you want to be teachers? Not one of them raised their hand. Not one.
Not one?
Not one. They want to be everything else. They want to make money. And I said, that's sad. Because the Push XL program, and one thing that came out of the black community when I was growing up, that we thought teachers we know you couldn't get rich, but it was the foundation of what we had to have. We knew that we need teachers like we need water and air. We need black teachers. We still need black teachers like we need water and air, as far as I'm concerned. And that really hurt me. And I said, we need the Push XL program to be reenacted again. And I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try to start the Push XL program all over again.
Are you?
Yes. You know why? Because when I looked at the Super Bowl, let me tell you what I heard. Did you watch the Super Bowl at halftime?
I did not watch halftime.
Let me tell you what I heard at halftime. I heard the push bell cry.
Did you?
Yes, them young football players that came up during Jesse Jackson's time were going to all these schools Jesse Jackson had influence, was teaching their young children that they was coaching the push bell cry. And I sit there and looked at that and said, my God, ain't that beautiful? And the push bell cry goes something like this: I am somebody. I am somebody. I may be young, but I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody. My hair may be different, but I am somebody. My skin may be different, but I am somebody. I must be protected. I must be protected, never neglected, always respected, because I'm God's child. Red, yellow, black, or white. I am precious in God's sight. I am somebody. And we can go on with that like that. We can just add anything into it we want to. Whatever the situation, I may be female, I may be male. You can add to it as you feel the situation calls for. And I used to do them battle cries through our school system in Chattanooga all the time. Jesse still do it. Jesse used to do them when he came here. And I said, I'm going to do that again. We did that for about 7 or 8 years in Chattanooga. And young children and children now who's old look at me and say, that's the push man. And they remember Jesse Jackson and me coming through there. And they remember what we were saying, that you have to study every night for 2 hours. You have to go to bed early. You have to wake up in the morning and get you a breakfast. You have to do all the things students are supposed to do to be excellent. That's what we taught. And although we did not do it the way it's supposed to do, because the white people wouldn't let us do it the way we were supposed to do it, we were supposed to start at the 6th grade and go to the 1st grade, start the 6th grade and go to the 12th grade. It takes you 12 years to change something. You can't change something in 1 year. And they were going to give us $300,000 a year for the Push XL program starting in the 12th grade. Ain't that crazy? $300,000 a year. They gave us that for about 6, 7 years. Yeah. Through the Push XL program in the city of Chattanooga. We was in 12 schools.
For 1 year, though?
No, we was in 12 schools for 12 years. But we started in the 12th grade, going backwards.
Supposed to go down to the 1st grade.
Yeah.
12th grade to the 6th.
So you can't do nothing. You can't do nothing for 12th grade students.
Right.
1 year ain't gonna do nothing.
No.
So we got started in 12th grade. The next year we go to 10th grade, and the next year see that's the way white people do you. And I'm gonna tell you about that. I'm gonna tell you this is what happened when we started the program. Well, we was doing the program, and Jesse Jackson was sending money down here just to do the program, and nobody was giving money, but Jesse Jackson was sending money down here, and we were raising money in Chattanooga, and we was doing it in Howard was our flagship school.
Right.
That's where we started. And it caught on so good, and it was going throughout the community. The Chamber of Commerce wanted to give us some money now. Anytime white people want to give you some money, they want to control you. Keep that in your mind.
That's the scary part then.
Yeah, but that's all right. I tell them in a minute, I want your money, and I'm going to take your money, and I'm going to spend it like I want to. And if you don't like that, don't give me no money. And so we was down there getting ready to sign the contract at Chamber of Commerce. Jesse Jackson came to town, signed the contract for $300,000. And the first thing that white people said to us, they don't want Johnny Holloway to have anything to do with Push XL because he runs Operation Push, and that would be a conflict of interest. Now, you got to understand how Operation Push is up. We have Push, we have the Push program. That's the parent organization. Then you have Operation Push. That's the economic arm of Operation and the education arm of Operation. Now the political arm and the political arm and the economic arm is called Push. Called Operation Push. You have Push as the parent organization. You have Operation Push as the legal arm and the economic arm of Operation. Then you have Push XL. That's the education arm of Operation Push. That's the way it's set up. So now I run Push. I run the Push Operation Push. So now I'm also running Push XL. So they saw that as a conflict of interest. And so they was trying to say they didn't want me to be on the board, or they didn't want me to have anything to do with the Push XL program. And Jesse Jackson sit there and looked at them and said, now I sit here and listen to y'all talk about what y'all want Johnny Holloway to do. He said, I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. He said, I'm gonna go out here and hold a news conference and go out there and tell the community what y'all have said about Johnny Holloway in this meeting. That's what I'm gonna do right now. And Jesse Jackson got up ready to walk out. They said, no, just don't walk out. Let's sit down and talk about it. And I said, well, let me tell y'all, let me sell it for you. I said, let me tell y'all something. I told the Chamber of Commerce this. I said, black people got so many problems. I don't have to be involved with the Push XL program to help black people, because that's all I'm gonna do. I said, I can go out here and get any problem black people got and try to solve it for them. I don't have to be involved with the Push XL, but I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna watch you, and if you don't do it right, I'm gonna tell on you. And it's no, so they decided to put me on the board and let me be part of it. That's how it came. That's how I got involved. But they didn't want me they didn't want me to have anything to do with Push XL.
Okay. So we got to wrap up. But tell me this, Johnny, because there's so much. I mean, it's so much history. We could sit here.
Oh, I can. That's right.
And talk, and we still would eliminate some stuff. But tell me this: when you look at where we are today, and I'm just talking about in the world and America,
Mm-hmm.
but in America per se, Chattanooga, period.
Okay.
Are we going to move forward? And who is the next black leader that you would see coming up and coming out of the ground, so to speak? Because most of our people at this particular point in time get their jobs. They don't look back or try to pull anybody like you all did. You know, I'm a product of somebody pulling me.
Yeah, I am too.
You know, I made some mistakes along the way, and I got spanked for those mistakes. And when I say I got spanked, there were those in the community that would pull you to the side.
You was raised by the village. That's what you was done.
Exactly right.
I was too.
You know. So do you see an elder or anybody coming out that's going to be the leader in this particular village that we're in today? Or do we have a village?
No, we don't have a village. The village is gone.
Okay.
Okay, that don't happen anymore. Integration took care of that.
You're exactly right.
So we don't have a village. We were forced into the village through segregation.
That we had to have a village.
We had to have the village then because we were forced into it. I believe integration is the way to go. And how we going to function from there. And so what I see now is that black people still got to give some leadership to this nation, but it can't save the nation.
I don't think America can be saved.
Well, I do. I do. I see a lot of saving in America. I see a lot of.
You're that different on that.
I know that. I'm different from most people. Now, what I say when I believe black people got to give the leadership. The Black Power movement was one of those leadership movements. Black Lives Matters was one of those movements where black people gave leadership to the nation. You got to remember this nation, black people is a very small part of this nation, and so they can't lead this nation. They can't save this nation. They can show you how to save the nation, but white people got to save the nation. That's what's got to happen. But black people got to be a part of showing them how.